Hey, Keith here. You know, one of the most important parts of building a camper van is the auxiliary battery, the battery that powers everything in the camper. You have an auxiliary battery and you have a chassis battery. The chassis battery is the engine battery. The simplest way to keep the auxiliary battery charged is to hook it into the alternator system of the vehicle. There's two other ways to do it as well. That's to install a shoreline through a converter that will then change 110 volts to 12 volts and then charge the battery. Or you can put solar panels on and charge the batteries that way. Or you can do all three. This is early in my build and I'm going to elect to just go with this for now. And here are what you need to do it. Of course, you got to have wire. And it's got to be heavy wire because it has to run from the battery all the way back to your auxiliary battery. So what I do is I buy jumper cables. That's the most cost-efficient way you can do it. And these are a 4-gauge. And what I did was I just cut the clamps off of it, put some terminals on it. Only issue with doing it this way is most of the time, battery cables are a copper-coated aluminum. You know, it would be really nice to have pure copper, but man, is that expensive. And the only real issue you would ever have with that, no further than what you're going to run it, is when you put copper and aluminum together, sometimes you get some corrosion or oxidation. And all you have to do to prevent that is to put a little bit of this in that terminal before you put it together, and that'll keep it from doing that. So, jumper cables, terminals, wire, and the most important component is the battery isolator. What this does is when you're running down the road and your alternator is putting a charge into the batteries, if your auxiliary battery is already charged, overcharging a battery is a bad thing. So you want a way of isolating the two batteries. So when you're running down the road and it's charging and you already have a full charge, you basically break that connection and now the back battery or the auxiliary battery is not being charged. The other issue is when you're camping and you're using your auxiliary battery and it starts to run low, you do not want to drain your engine battery completely down because then you're stuck. So it's a dual purpose, you know, it's a safety factor for always keeping your engine battery charged, and it also allows you to be able to have a way to charge your auxiliary battery. And I guess in a emergency situation, if your engine battery was dead, you could flip that switch and start your engine off of your auxiliary battery. So these are the components of what it takes to do it. And now we're going to continue the build and go put them on. Okay, this is the installation up under the hood. This is the chassis battery or the engine battery. And basically what we did, let's start with the grounds. We brought our negative wire up here and we attached it to this ground block. And that ground block has a large cable that runs over to the battery. So basically what you've done is you've tied all these together into one. Now this cable, let's see right here, it runs back down there. That goes to the chassis ground. This is like a secondary ground here that Chevy put in. It allows them to bring a bunch of the negative wires and attach them here. And this is the switch, the battery isolator. And we're going to have the wire from here, which will run back to the switch, which I'm still waiting on that 14-gauge wire so I can run that and the LED lights. And this is the main cable that comes from the positive of the battery. Runs over here to this side of the switch. And then from this other side of the switch, it runs all the way back and underneath back to the auxiliary battery. And I'll show you how we set that up. It's just kind of difficult filming under here. But you can see I came in from the front and I've run this all along, attaching it at places like that, keeping it really tight the best that I can. And I'll back up a little. attached it there. Let's see if I can get this light. You can see a little better. There we go. This is making for some awkward videoing. Okay. This is some loom that I put on it, wire loom and tape. Now I got to push it up through that hole. And I wanted to put that on there so that, you know, you wouldn't get any cuts into the wire going through that metal. And then I'll silicone it in real well as well. So the key here was to keep the wire as tight up against the metal as possible and only on flat, smooth edges so that you wouldn't get any abrasion. So now I just got to try to get that up through there. Here we go. All right, this is completed. Let's just go over here real quick. This has got a wire loom on it, so it keeps it from rubbing. I'll put a couple wire ties on it so it can't drop down, and then we'll put sealer in there. And we've run across using wire ties to secure it up high. The plywood sits on this, the plywood that the mattress rests on, so you've got to keep it down below. And that's what we've done. So we've run it all the way down, did the same thing on the wheel well. And there is the connection for the battery. If you notice, I got a loop of wire there, which will allow me to be able to pull it on out to do any connections or, you know, anything I might have to do to the battery. Hopefully, which will be very little. That's my old trolling motor battery there. I actually have a AGM 100 amp hour 12 volt battery, deep cycle battery coming. It should be here in a day or two. So that will be great. Now we have left to do is test it. All right, we've got it all hooked up. We're going to start the engine. And this will be the moment of truth. Right now you've got 12.1 volts in the auxiliary battery. When I flip this switch, that will connect them, and let's see what happens. Oh, charging at 14.4 volts. All right, that's what I wanted to see. Turn it back off, and she drops back down. Already got a little bit of a charge. Fantastic. Success. All right, it is great to have the auxiliary battery hooked up and everything working the way it's supposed to. Listen, if you enjoy this type of video, please give us a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe, and we really appreciate you watching. Stay safe, keep your family safe, and we'll see you on the next one.